There's a moment in every life when the world no longer seems solid. You look at the things you thought you knew, the routines, the beliefs, the endless scroll of tasks and obligations, and something feels strange, almost hollow. It is as if a veil has been pulled back just enough for you to glimpse a deeper layer of reality, a texture that was always there but hidden in plain sight. This uneasy recognition is not the end of your understanding, but its beginning, a subtle crack in the structure of what you believed was unshakable. That moment is what many call the first sign of. They are used casually in books, videos, and social conversations, often framed as a pursuit of peace, clarity, or higher consciousness, yet beneath that surface lies something more radical. Taken as solid truth is nothing more than an elaborate arrangement of illusions. The phrase forbidden knowledge may sound dramatic, but its meaning is practical. What makes knowledge forbidden is not the stories you are taught as absolute suddenly. All of it looks fragile, provisional, like a dream you once mistook for reality. In ancient Egypt, initiates were told that the soul was eternal and that the body was a vessel, not a self. In the hidden schools of Greece, seekers were reminded that perception was a shadow cast on the cave wall, and that truth waited outside the flickering play of appearances. In Eastern traditions, the breath itself was revealed as a key, a rhythm linking the finite to the infinite, the human to the cosmic. Across cultures and centuries, a consistent message has surfaced that spiritual awakening is not simply about comfort or inspiration, but about a radical shift in how one perceives existence. To awaken is to disturb the illusion, to confront what lies beneath. This is why awakening often feels less like a victory and more like a rupture. At first, it unsettles rather than soothes. You may feel as if you are losing your footing, like the ground beneath you has given way and no familiar structure can hold you. Yet it is within that trembling state that something profound is happening. The mind resists, but a deeper intelligence begins to rise, one that does not rely on thought alone. This intelligence does not come from accumulation of information, but from alignment with something far older, something woven into the fabric of being itself. The forbidden knowledge at the heart of spiritual awakening has many forms. Some experience it as a direct realization. You are not who you thought you were, the present in ways the intellect struggles to explain. Still others find it through symbols, synchronicities, or visions that collapse the ordinary categories of mind. No matter the entry point, the impact is the same. A shift so complete that reality itself seems to bend around you. The unsettling truth is that spiritual awakening cannot be domesticated. It is not a trend, not a self-help technique, not a decorative idea to enhance your lifestyle. To awaken is to expose yourself to something that changes everything, not because you want it to, but because once the veil. Awakening is both gift and burden, both light and disruption. To speak of it openly is to invite the possibility that you will no longer view your life as you once did. This is the reason for the urgency, the reason it has been called forbidden. The question is not whether the knowledge exists, it always has. The question is whether you are willing to look directly at it, and in doing so, allow the old forms to dissolve. What follows is not a tidy manual or a list of techniques. It is an unmasking, a weaving together of perspectives, symbols, and truths that point toward the core of awakening itself. You will be asked to sit with paradoxes, to consider possibilities that may unsettle you, and to reflect on the hidden structures that shape both your inner and outer world. Each step deeper will reveal not only the mechanics of consciousness, but also the strange beauty of a reality far larger than you have been taught to imagine. This is not a story of escape. Smaller self you once defended. The knowledge will demand its place in your life, reshaping how you breathe, how you act, how you see. This is where we stand, at the threshold of a knowledge both conditioned to accept and the one that has always existed beneath that conditioning. The first is orderly, familiar, and reinforced by society. The second is fluid, boundless, and unsettling to the. This architecture is not built of bricks or language, but of patterns, energies, and principles that most people overlook because they are too close to see. One of the most persistent illusions is sounds. Forms. These are interpretations, not absolutes. What you call reality is a filtered rendering, a projection that hides more than it reveals. Mystics and modern physicists strangely converge. Here, both point out that what you perceive as solid matter is, in truth, vibrating fields of energy, patterns without fixed borders. The forbidden knowledge is not that the world isn't real, but that your version of it is partial, provisional, and easily mistaken for the whole. Time itself is another construct that dissolves under the gaze of awakening. The ordinary mind experiences time as a straight line, past leading to present, present flowing into future. Yet in deeper states of awareness, time feels less like a line and more like a vast field where all moments coexist, dreams. The possibility of freedom. Another theme is the hidden role of energy. Across cultures, this knowledge has been given different names. Prana in India, Chi in China, Pneuma in Greece. Spirit in countless traditions, the body is not merely flesh and bone, but a conduit of energy, constantly receiving, transforming, and radiating. Awakening is often accompanied by strange bodily sensations, vibrations, heat, pressure, sudden waves of calm or ecstasy. These are not accidents, but signs that your awareness is tuning into the subtle forces that sustain life for centuries. This understanding has been pushed to the margins, dismissed as superstition. Yet once you experience it directly, no authority can convince you it is imaginary. Energy is not a metaphor but a lived reality. The forbidden knowledge also involves a recognition of control. From birth, you are fed narratives about who you are, what the world is, and what you must pursue. These narratives are not neutral. They serve systems of power, shaping your desires and fears in ways that keep you predictable. Awakening reveals how deep this conditioning runs. You see how language itself limits thought, how education directs attention, how media manipulates emotion. To awaken is not to adopt a new ideology, but to see through the structures that govern you invisibly. This vision can be destabilizing, even frightening, because it removes the comfort of certainty. But it also grants a clarity that no external authority can provide. Underlying all of these themes is the paradox of awakening. It feels like discovering something new, yet it is more accurate to say you are remembering something ancient. The knowledge was always present, hidden in the background of your experience, like a melody playing too softly to hear until you turn your attention to it. Once heard, it cannot be silenced. You realize that awakening is less about gaining new truths and more about stripping away the layers of distraction and deception that obscured them. The concepts of oneness, illusion, time, energy, and control are not abstract philosophies but direct experiences. They are the pillars of awakening because they reframe everything you thought was stable. They expose the fragility of the structures you relied on. But in that exposure they reveal something more enduring. The ground of being itself. It is a ground that cannot be owned, sold, or destroyed. Because it is not a thing, the very field from which all things rise. To approach these themes is to recognize that awakening is not a single event, but an ongoing process. The forbidden knowledge does not arrive all at once. It seeps into your life, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, disrupting old patterns and forcing you to see in new ways. At times it feels like liberation, at other times like loss. Yet through both, a deeper clarity begins to take shape, a sense that you're relying not with a belief, but with reality itself. And here is the paradox once more. Awakening does not add to your life. It subtracts. It strips away illusions, attachments, and false identities. What remains is not something you acquire, but something you always were. This is why it changes everything. Because it does not give you a new reality, but reveals the one that was always hidden. Beneath the noise, the themes we have traced here are not isolated. They interweave, forming a tapestry of recognition that deepens the more you attend to it. To awaken is to begin to see that tapestry, to glimpse the hidden structure of consciousness itself. But words can only take us so far to fully understand. We must turn to the language of symbols, stories, and metaphors, for they speak to the part of us that logic alone cannot reach. When direct explanation reaches its limits, symbols take over. They bypass the intellect and speak directly to the deeper layers of. It whispers the same forbidden knowledge that awakening reveals. What you call real is not as stable as you think, and the self you identify with may be as provisional as the butterfly's wings. Another image, older still, is the labyrinth. In Greek myth, the labyrinth was a maze built to contain the Minotaur, a creature half man, half beast for the unawakened. Life itself often feels like a labyrinth, twisting pots, dead ends, endless turns without clarity. The beast at its center is not merely a monster, but the shadow of human ignorance, the unconscious drives that keep one bound. The thread of Ariadne, given to Theseus to find his way out, is the symbol of awareness itself. It does not eliminate the labyrinth, but provides a way through it. Awakening does not destroy the structures of confusion. It equips you with the thread that leads beyond them. The ancients also spoke of fire. In Plato's allegory of the cave, prisoners sit chained, mistaking shadows on all four. Reality. When one breaks free and sees the fire behind them, he realizes the shadows were illusions. But the allegory goes deeper. Beyond the fire is the sunlight, an even greater reality, ground from which clarity emerges. There is also the recurring symbol of mirrors. In countless traditions, the world is described as a mirror reflecting the inner state of the observer. If your heart is open, you will notice beauty where others see only emptiness. Awakening reveals that reality is not a fixed landscape, but a reflection responding to consciousness, to clean the knowledge, awareness, the spark of divine insight. Prometheus suffers for his act, bound to a rock where an eagle devours his liver each day, only for it to grow back again, the punishment. You take in life, holding, you merge with stillness, exhaling, you release, the cycle repeats endlessly, reminding you of the impermanence of each moment. In many traditions, the breath is described as the bridge between body and spirit, the most accessible portal to awakening. It is both mundane and sacred. The forbidden knowledge hidden here is that the divine is not distant, but present in our concepts. It must be felt, seen, and remembered through the language of images. Each symbol acts as a doorway, inviting you to step into an expanded state of perception. They reveal that reality is lived, and that what you see depends on how deeply you are willing to look. The butterfly, the labyrinth, the fire, the lotus, the mirror, the stolen flame, the breath, each tells the same story in different form. You are not what you believe you are. The world is not what it appears to be. The struggle you endure is not meaningless, but formative. The illusions that bind you are not ultimate. Symbolically is to realize that nothing is merely literal. Every event, every encounter, every challenge carries layers of meaning. Awakening is not only about perceiving hidden truths, but about learning to read reality itself as a living text. What seems ordinary becomes charged with significance. A dream, a chance meeting, a repeated number, a passing phrase, all can be mirrors. Directly, symbols protect the truth while delivering it, ensuring that only those with eyes to see will recognize it. Awakening requires this kind of vision, the willingness to look beyond. Expand your sense of reality. But eventually they ask a simple question. How will you live differently now? Without integration, awakening risks becoming another fascination of the mind. Then entirely you are still a parent, a worker, a friend, a neighbor, but you no longer mistake those roles for who you are. You perform them with awareness, like an actor who knows it is a play yet. Cleaner, relationships more genuine, work more focused. You do not eliminate memory or planning, but you stop being ruled by them. You begin to sense that the only moment you can truly inhabit is the. You recognize it as a dynamic field. How you breathe, how you eat, how you move, how you rest, all of it affects the flow of energy. Practices like conscious breathing, meditation, or simple attention to posture are no longer optional exercises, but direct ways of shaping your experience. Even ordinary actions, walking, speaking, listening, become your opportunities to align with the subtle currents within you. The forbidden knowledge becomes embodied in the way you treat your own system, no longer ignoring its signals, but learning to cooperate with them. Integration also forces you to confront. You cannot return to blind compliance. You begin to question what you consume, what you believe, what you value. This questioning does not always lead to rebellion, but it leads to choice, hurt, but you recognize them as expressions of their own conditioning, their own unawakened patterns. Compassion rises not as pity, but as understanding. You still hold boundaries, you still make choices, but you stop feeding cycles of blame. Instead, you begin to ask, how can I respond in a way that does not perpetuate unconsciousness? Sometimes the answer is patience, sometimes distance. Washing dishes, answering emails, or walking down the street become as much a field of awakening as meditation or prayer. You bring presence into each action, and that presence reshapes the quality. Once you know that your state of being influences reality, you cannot pretend your actions and thoughts are insignificant. Each moment becomes a choice, to contribute to clarity or to confusion, to add to division or to healing. This responsibility is not imposed from outside, but felt from within. It is the natural outcome of seeing more clearly. Responsibility becomes less about moral obligation and more about alignment with what is real. Ultimately, integration is about embodiment. It is one thing to glimpse unity, to see through illusion, to feel the flow of energy. It is another to live in a way that reflects that vision. Awakening matures not in the intensity of mystical experiences, but in the quiet consistency of daily life. Do you speak with awareness? How you relate to others, how you work, how you choose, how you move through time. All are touched, all are reshaped, and in that reshaping, the forbidden knowledge is no longer forbidden. It is lived, embodied, and shared silently through your presence. The journey we have traced begins with mystery and ends with responsibility. Awakening is no trick of philosophy, nor a curiosity reserved for seekers of the esoteric. It is the deep unveiling of reality itself. To encounter the forbidden knowledge is to realize that life is not what you are taught, not a linear path of struggle from birth to death, but a vast field of consciousness playing out through form. At first, this realization can feel destabilizing if the self is not fixed, if the world is not solid, if time itself is less rigid than you believed. Then what foundation remains? The shock of awakening is precisely this. The floor you thought you were standing on is revealed as a dream, not lie in ideas alone, but in lived experience. Reading, listening, watching, these may point the way, but the actual awakening happens within your own awareness. It is the moment you see clearly that, separate from you, these are not metaphors, they are direct encounters, accessible to anyone willing to look without distraction. Still, awakening asks more than recognition. It asks for integration, practical ground of transformation. If you sense that something inside you is stirring, that the familiar explanations of life no longer satisfy, then take this as a sign, the call of awakening. Every moment becomes a chance to practice awareness, to peel back the veil, to align with what is real. The forbidden knowledge we have explored is not owned by any culture, teacher, or tradition. It is the birthright of consciousness itself. No authority can grant it, and none can take it away. It waits within you, in the silent gap between thoughts, in the stillness behind breath, unfolding each time you remember to be present. The knowledge once hidden is no longer forbidden. It is available, alive, pressing through the cracks of the old world. The question is whether you